Era1 Radio. Samupe, Jumpe Dietia, Timothy and Uncoto, Era1 Radio. Oh, and Yumpangtima, Asam Pangtima, Chimto, and Gratumtima, Era1, Yebo Yumpangtima.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again. Today is July the 7th, and we'd like to welcome you again to Hot Sports on Era1 Radio. It's myself, your presenter, your host, Samuel. Our co-host, my co-host, Jeff Hammond, is going to be joining us pretty soon. Again, we do have a co-host from Ghana, Cam Misty. Misty, welcome once again. I know that you do sacrifice your time, given what time it is in Ghana, and we do appreciate you for that. But anyway, thank you guys for anyone watching us on YouTube, Facebook, on our audio stream, or any in any part of the world. We'd like to welcome you. If today's your first time, you are welcome, and we appreciate you guys for being here. Eric, we do appreciate you guys. We do appreciate you for watching us on YouTube and also commenting and following us. We appreciate you. Again, we like to start our show off, with a segment we call "Funny but Painfully True," and most of the time we talk about this general, things attacking, the world of sports. It could be anything from the government point of view. It could be players. It could be the individual, and everything else that we are, we're facing. But it's usually very painful to actually when you look at this situation. But it is actually true, and we would like our technical team to actually just put the. So this is actually what happened in Ghana. As we cry, as we talk, and always discuss what the GFA, what the local league, what the government can actually do for us. We as citizens usually go on to ruin exactly what it is that we have or what is being built for us. Now, what you're looking at is not a design, ladies and gentlemen. This is a part of the AstroTurf, and I believe correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was an initiative by the current president or the current ruling party, promising one district, one AstroTurf or something. And this is an AstroTurf that was built by the Ministry of Sports in is it a Burnham region, if I'm not mistaken. And what happened was someone actually took a chunk of this the field, the turf, and decorated his room with it. Ladies and gentlemen, you might think this is a funny, but the painful truth is it's real. It's actually something that is happening in our nation, and as hard as it is to swallow this pill, we are swallowing it, and it's something that we're gonna have to deal with. Something that we're gonna have to always just look at and try to see what we can do to actually just make it work or to be successful. Again, we can choose to blame the government. We can choose to blame GFA. We can choose to blame Ministry of Sports. We could choose to blame a lot of different representatives or agencies for exactly what it is that needs to be done to make sports in our nation very successful. But we as citizens, we need to play a part. And that is our segment for Funny but Painfully True. We would like to move on to the next one. Misty, I think last week the three of us actually did have a discussion. We did have a discussion about Amate's situation. Daniel Amate, as of now, we're going to get to that the second slide later. Our technical team, if you could just take that down, thank you. So we were talking about the Daniel Amate situation, and we did table that up for discussion for today. I think that what we had, the situation was his contract was not renewed by Leicester City. Last week was the final day of the contract, and he was supposed to get a renewal, but according to the physical trainer or the therapist, he didn't believe Amate was really 27 years old because he got injured way too many times as of last year, and every possible remedy that they actually took to get him better as a player did not work for 27 years old. So that played a huge factor as to why his contract was not renewed, and possibly might be moving on to Turkey. And I think you had started talking about the whole spectrum surrounding Ghana and some of the youth actually changing the ages just to get play time. And I kind of wanted to take today. We wanted to continue from there. So you go ahead. You have the
Okay,
floor.
so
So
thank you very much. And this age cheating has always been an issue in the past, and it boils down to how players develop or take time to develop before they get to the mainstream and football industry. And because we don't have a proper code system, and players have to go through the third division, second division, and to be honest, you can't blame Amate. He went through a lot for. I think he played for Inter Allies, and I'm sure by that time, and it's very difficult to match the school system and getting into the sport or playing football, any other sport, because most of the time there's a difference between the football and the sport and school. It's very
mm,
few schools that will allow you to play your sport and also do academics, because if you fail in school you are going to be sacked. And you know how in Africa and in Ghana in particular, our parents are much more involved in, or force us to do a lot of school than the sports.
yeah,
So you can't blame Amate. I'm sure by the time he left the shores of Ghana, possibly he was about 25 then. So adding 10 plus years, yeah, he'll be in his 30s, so it's normal. And the boys are still doing it. All you need to just swear an affidavit. Oh, my parents made a mistake with my date of birth. I just changed it, and that's all. So yeah, it's normal. Because you can't tell me Steve Napier retired at 32 years, Michael Essien retired at 32 years, John Mensah retired at 30 years. Who else? And those, and in football, 30 years should be like your top level, where
right.
most of the players are playing in the at their peak. Of course, maybe around from 28 to 30, 31, 32. And you can mention a lot of players who are even 35 and still playing well. You understand? So it's very strange where a player like Ajiman Bidu retired at 30 years.
Mm,
Samuel Nkum saying they all played with Dede Ayew in the 2009 World Cup and AFCON under 20, and they are all retired. Most of the players from that time or from that season are retired now. So because the Adia is not playing anymore, Ransford Osei is not playing anymore. Um, the defenders, almost all of them are not playing. So you can't tell me you are 31, 32 years and you can't get regular game time in Europe where you play. I mean, there's a problem with the age, and which is
So it's funny, right? Because you're saying that, and one thing that pops up because I remember in the 2010 World Cup. I think Ghana was the youngest team in the whole World Cup, which was kind of funny to me because our captain, John Mensah, claimed to be 19 years old at the time, which was really ridiculous. So it's funny because you're actually bringing it up there. Ironically, looking at his time of retirement, he retired at the age of 30. How do you guys think that's actually affecting Ghana football, though, or just the progress in general?
well,
Oh, Jeff, thanks for joining us. Sorry, we're talking about the Daniel Mate situation, his age being a factor, and his contract not, having to fall through. So I think we're talking about how the age is actually affecting the progress of the game.
Oh yeah, I think I'm tracking. You guys go along.
yeah.
All right, I hear an echo. I hope it's not from my end.
I missed to go ahead while Jeff tried to figure it out.
Okay, so yes, well, definitely age cheating affects the progress because to have a good national team or to have a very successful senior national team in football, you need about at least 5 or 10 years of regular team players playing in the same team, and that's what benefited us in 206 between 206 and 2010 because if you most of the under 20s then in 2002, that was the Michael Essien era, Sule Muntari era, all played together and all migrated into the senior team, which any national team need because you need consistency and regular playing time for almost all the players to be successful. And you can see this Cote d'Ivoire had a similar situation with the golden generation where Drogba, Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure all played in the same national team for at least 5 or 6 or between 5 and 10 years. And if you cheat with the age, you can never play in the national team. The whole crop or the whole group can play for like 10 years, which will definitely affect the success of the team because they play 1, 2 years, 3 years when they are getting to know each other, getting used to each other. Then age cheating, then of course you can't play because if Amate doesn't take care, he might not be in the World Cup. But Amate has been consistent for about 2, 3 years, or let's say maybe 5 years in the national team. So if he was right about his age, it should have been like the point where he's with the same crop of the Dede Ayus and the other players who have played together for some time, know each other so well, and can just move and be successful in the World Cup. But now he might not be playing in the World Cup if he doesn't get a good team and regular play time.
Well, Jeff, go ahead. Well, Jeff, before you actually chime in, I think so. I mean, this how I look at it, right? Just like you said, when you get to usually in a game of football, when you get to that 28, 29, 30, 31, 34, I'll probably say is a cap when it comes to being at your peak, right? I mean, we're looking at like a player like Edouard Mendy. Let's look at a player like N'Golo Kante. We have certain players that are we call them late bloomers, right? They bloom like very very late, but they're very very good, right? Now we have a system. Could it be like our academy system that's not good? That's actually forcing people to actually alter their ages. Is it because when we go outside, the aim of going outside is so high that when we get out there we want to achieve or just play for a very long time. That's why we change our age. What do you guys think is the main factor? Jeff, go ahead.
I mean, I think you've laid it out. The main factor is the fact that people like. I mean, let's break it down to like the most simplest concept so that everybody watching can follow along. If I right now, well, if I'm let's say 21 years old and I'm going against other 21-year-olds who have worked on their craft, built their craft and things like that, and it's neck and neck, I don't have as much an advantage as if I'm 21 years old and with all my experience and everything I go against 17 16-year-olds. I will play better, I will shine better, I will be a better player, not because I am a better player than them, but because I'm older and I'm stronger and I have more like more experience playing than they do. So being an older age, but then bringing your age down so that you're playing with individuals who are much younger than you helps you shine, helps put like place you in a light that coaches might see, that might think that, oh, you're better than what you actually are, things like that. So people lie about the ages, one, so that they can be able to essentially stand out. But then two, it's like a lot of times too, I realize that what ends up happening is some people feel like they may have missed the opportunity for, like to come through the academy of some other team or to, and so they lie about their age in order to get into these teams. Because if you're that good of a player and although you're 21 or however old you are, you're being considered as a 16-year-old, all of a sudden all these teams are crazy about you and you get the opportunities that you want. So for me, it's like the incentive is there to do it. It's like if you're thinking about it from an individual level, The problem is what we're seeing with Daniel Mate and all the everything you guys have been talking about, which is what you chop today, you will lose it tomorrow,
Yeah,
right?
true.
So if you want to get all those opportunities, and the thing is, and I said this last week on the show, is the biggest contract, even like I can't think of the biggest contract that a 23, 22, 24-year old can get. A 27-year-old can get two, three, 10 times that contract, right? But the thing is, and so the thing is, when you push at that age, because if they're giving you a contract, let's say you're 27, but you're lying and saying you're 24, they're gonna give you a contract that is commensurate with a 24-year-old, or people who are considered your peers. Now, by the time that you're 27, which is like the height of your career, which is also around the time that 27, 28, 29, when you're looking to get your last big contract before you retire, because you lied about your age 10 years ago, now your performance doesn't actually back up like the case to get that contract. So you end up losing the big contract in the long run. But I mean, it is a Ghanaian / African mindset, whereas like we're always focused on what we can get to eat today, and we have this mindset of we'll cross the river when we get there tomorrow. But that's what ends up happening. My biggest issue with it is it's not the individual consequences, because I'm like, you deserve it. Daniel Mate deserves it. Everyone we've talked about who is lied about their age, and then once they get to the point where they're expecting to get the big contracts and they don't get it, deserves it. I don't feel pity for them. I feel nothing for them. Like, they deserve it. They deserve to not get those big contracts, because in my opinion, they took food out of somebody's mouth when they were lying about their age, right? There was a 17-year-old, 18-year-old who was working their butt off, who should have gotten that opportunity that you, the 23, 24-year-old, got because you lied about your age. And so that's my concern about it, is the fact that in the long run, we end up starving the youth, right? So now imagine if you have, a team that is saying that, it's like we have a roster for like 24 players, national team, club team, whatever it may be. And after, like selecting the 24 players, whether it's under 17, under 23, whatever it may be, then we find out that, okay, all of them are over that age. What ends up happening is there are under 23, under 17 kids who should have gotten an opportunity who don't get it. So now they have to wait till they turn 24 before they can get those under 23 opportunities that they didn't get when they were eligible. And so we continue this cycle. We're just continuing this cycle year in, year out. And for whatever reason, it's like nobody's really stepping in to say, okay, this is not working. We've had over 20 years of this, right? I mean, I've known about this all my life, and I'm not that old, right? So it's like we know this thing doesn't work. We know the consequences, the long-term consequences. We know the implications of it. But yet it's like we only think about what we want to get to eat today, and then we take opportunities from other people. So for me, I'm like, hey, what is happening is what is supposed to happen, and I don't feel anything for them. If anything, I'm happy that it is happening to them, because now it becomes what do you call it? A cautionary tale for those behind them. And then on the flip side, that's the reason why you're seeing the foreign kids getting a lot of opportunities. Why? Because technically this is a time that our 27-year-old players should be shining. But because they're 30 and they're 35 and older, they're not shining. So now, but the thing is, the kids who actually are of their age, but were born and bred abroad, who can prove that that age is what their age is, they're going to get the opportunities. And guess what? They're going to get those opportunities. You take the Tariq Lampteys, you take all these kids who have committed to Ghana now, they're going to play for Ghana for a good 10 years. A good 10 years. Why? Because Tariq Lamptey is what, 22, 23, I think. If with proper training and game time, he should be able to play till he's like 32. So he's going to get the full measure of everything he's going to get, only because he's playing according to his age. So I don't know. That's just my take on it. Like, they deserve it. I don't feel bad for them.
You think we can do, right? What do you think? I mean, Steve, I want you to chime in on this. What do you think as a nation or as a football organization in Ghana? Because honestly, I think we what Jeff said actually kind of dives us back into what exactly we were talking about last week. It's funny because you look at Ghana football and it keeps going down. Now, Mr. mentioned something. There is no way the likes of Stephen Apia, Michael Essien, the Inkum, and all these John Mensah, they all retire at the age of 31, 32, 33, right? And it doesn't make sense. You look at Michael Essien, and literally he had a nickname in the Premier League called the Bison, and it was impossible for anyone to get past him, in the midfield. He would chase you. I mean, forgetting N'Golo Kante with Essien in there, he was a stopper, and every team used to be scared of him. But he retired at a very young age, and quite honestly, we can all just blame it on this age. How do you think, as a nation, we can actually just vet these kind of players out and just have a much younger core, like Jeff is saying, with Tariq Lamptey, being so young, only 20 years old and 21 years old, and all these things. How can we actually just vet these players out and just set a standard? Do you think there's a standard that we can set and say, hey, you know what? This is what we're going to do in going forward in terms of age?
Okay, so yes, I think we are getting there now. CAF has a system of the MRI to check the ages, and that's what took about for our female, even the male under 17, it took about 20 players out of the qualifiers. And so we are getting there. So and now more international academies are springing up where when before you get there and you want to get into the academy, you need to have the MRI done on you before it's checked because it's not helping anyway. Those times they used to use weight. You stand on a scale. If you weigh more than this or below this, then okay, then it means you're under 17. They used to do a lot of things to check the body size and stature to check, okay, then you look 17 when you're actually like 25. And Ghanaians are naturally not really tall and big, so they go through with that. So, yes, we are getting there now. GFA has taken the MRI check very serious, and that's what they are doing. And now there's a system where if you play for any local coast team, unless you just came fresh from one house or something, when you play for any local coast team, you are registered into a FIFA Connect system where the age can never be changed again in 1,000 years. So it will take time, but we've started from somewhere. So yes, I think we'll get there. We are getting there, in fact.
Yeah,
So let me add up. So if you could realize now our junior national teams are not performing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because we are using our real ages. And that is what we are going through now. So it's a phase, but we'll get there.
So Jeff, I think you mentioned this, right? I just want to ask you as as an analyst, as a fan of the sport, don't you think if we are able, or even if we limit, like, well, listen, based on the foundation of the sport, or you know, the way we've structured the sport in Ghana, or just in general, don't you think if we are able, or if for some reason we're able to kind of see this age thing out, don't you think it's going to limit us, our players, from playing international? Because honestly, by the time they really get discovered, it'll be way too late. And most of these players don't have the opportunity. And you know how it is. Ghana League is definitely not going to take a much younger player to play. There's so many great, talented players out there. And obviously, we saw some Brazilians playing for Kotoko and some Cameroonians playing in the league either. So if they're able to see this players out, is that really going to help the local team? I mean, the local league, and is also going to help push the players abroad?
So for me, it's a similar response because I feel like when you asked me about Daniel Mate, we're talking about it on an individual level.
Right.
And everything I was saying, we can take that and transpose that at the macro level, which is it going to limit our opportunities internationally? Is it going to limit our performances internationally? Yes. And again, we deserve it. Why? Because for years, we have enjoyed the short-term gains of lying about age so that we can win under 20 World Cups.
Right.
Instead of making the investments we needed to make in order to win regular World Cup, like adult grown World Cups, we took the shortcut and then, we cheated to win the under 20 World Cups, right? The price we paid for that was that we couldn't win an adult World Cup. Now, the problem is the price we're gonna pay for the next foreseeable future is the investments. If we, let's say, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, in 2000s, we realized that, you know what, given our using our players' regular age, we needed more conditioning. We needed more, it's like we figured out what was missing for our players to be able to compete at the same level as like their counterparts internationally. Even if we could not have figured it out in 1 year, it would have taken, even if it took us 20 years, right? We would be reaping the benefits of that now. Whatever experiment we would have put in place, whatever strategy we would have put in place, we would now be seeing our players now becoming able, to compete at that level with their counterparts internationally. We didn't do that. We rather cheated so that we could, bully small kids in under 20 World Cups and win under 20 World Cups. But we were always exposed once we came and played the adult World Cup. Now that accountability is coming to it, it's time for us to pay for it. So again, it might seem very harsh, but I'm like that's what accountability comes with. That we're being held accountable for the things that we did. When we were doing it back then, we're reaping the benefits. We didn't complain and say, why do we think we're winning, under 20 and under 17 World Cups? We enjoyed it. We took the benefits of it, right? We made sacrifices, which was we sacrificed the adult World Cup so that we can win under 20 World Cup. So if the time has come for us to now pay for all of those years of lying and cheating, I think we should face the music, but then also sit back and instead of just wallowing in it, start thinking, okay, what do we need to do? Even if we're not going to be able to compete in the next 5, 10, 15 years, what do we need to do to make sure that when we get there, we can now begin competing for those opportunities? And if the reality is, if we don't do that, then we're just going to extend and make this punishment period that we're going to go through forever. And that's one thing that we as Ghanaians, unfortunately, and I'm saying this as in like looking at other things beyond sports, we're just not good at. We're not good at long-term planning, or we're not good at putting a long-term plan into place and actually executing against it. We need to start learning to do that, and that's how we're going to be able to begin getting the kind of acknowledgement that we want to get on the international stage. Until then, like, look, if you don't put in the work, you can't expect the results.
So let's guys, let's look at this, right? And it's good, right? Let's dive deep into. We're talking about age. We're talking about how it's definitely going to affect us. Well, before we actually just proceed, well, I'd like to thank you guys for the live comments, and we actually just seen everything. We'll definitely address that, very soon. Kwame Barton said, "I'm watching live in color." We appreciate that. Freeman did mention, say something, our constant viewer. He said that the issue and the problem should start from the grassroots, which is cold soccer. I think I mostly said that. And, it's something that I think we need to, hit the nail on the head on. And I think it stems, and it's definitely just going to, come all the way from our academies. Like, like we talked about last week, one of Otuado's, goal is actually to start an academy with Dartmouth, bringing them there, and hopefully that could be a start of something greater, right? So yeah, we definitely just do see that, and we hope that that's something that we can actually just Ghana can actually work on. Now let's look at this, guys. Now this is a potential lineup with what we have. It's a rumored lineup, guys. It's not the solid lineup. We're looking at this and we're talking about age, right? So I'm going to ask you guys, and I just want numbers. Amisti, what is the average age that you think a successful national team should have? I think you muted. Go ahead. What's the average age?
Senior national team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like averagely to be successful playing together, maybe 25 will be fine. 26.
Okay, Jeff, what's the age that you think we should have?
I agree. 25, between 25 and 27.
Yes.
Because that's when players are like at the height of their careers.
Yes.
So Ghana's age, looking at this roster that we have, our average age is actually 27 and 8 months, right? Let's look at it. Now we're looking at the success, and I think the last time I missed aka Kwasi Appiah is keen on rebuilding, right? And now look at this rebuilding, and let's talk about rebuild. How can we rebuild with a team? Our youngest player is actually Gideon Mensah, who apparently is 20 years old. Honestly, no, I'm sorry, not Gideon. Gideon's son Sulemana is 20 years old, and I have seen the man play. I've seen his pictures. But you
Kamaldeen.
know what? I'm sorry.
Kamaldeen.
Yeah, 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 and I've seen him play, and I've seen his pictures and everything. Man, I grew up in Ghana. I know what a 20-year-old looks like, and you know what I'm saying. Now we go down to our goalie is 25 years old. Daniel Mate supposedly 27 years old. Jiku is I'm sorry, I think I'm missing it. Jiku, I'll come back to that because I think I might
I
have
can find it for you.
missed. I might have missed that, but I thought I had it down. But let's go on. Mohamed Salisu is actually 21, 23 years old. Tariq Lamptey 21. Thomas Partey is 28. And Mohamed Kudus is 27 years old. Gideon Mensah is 23. Suleimano, we talked about, is 20 years old. Inaki Williams is 28 years old. Jordan Ayew is 30 years old. I don't know if you found Jiku. You
Jiku is
know,
27.
Jiku is 27. Now, Amisti, I actually want you start us off with that. We have a national team of quote unquote rebuilding, and I'm not sure what the GFA actually mean. I don't know exactly what they mean when they talk about rebuilding, starting off players who are actually past and that's one of the reasons why I really was not in favor of inviting most of these outside of the country based players, because you look at Naki Williams, who recently just switched his nationality, and obviously he's 28 years. There was no way Spain was going to call him. I mean, come on, man. Spain was never going to call him at the age of 20, 28 years old. So again, we look at it. How do you think that's going to impact us in a World Cup, though?
I think yes, um, definitely. I think okay. So Mohammed Kudus is 21, not 27. Yes, and okay. So I feel we need experience. We need young lads. We need new players, fresh energy. So it's. I think the team you just put out there is actually a blend of everything.
Mhm.
If Salisu is actually 21 for a defender, young guy, good. Mohamed Kudus in the midfield, Kamal Dean, very young people, is good. Inyaki is good for the experience. He has seen it all. He has played at the biggest stage. You know, this Catalan derbies are like wars, and he has faced them all. So it's a good mix. That's what I'm saying. So for success, yes, I think the blend is good. And we still have a lot of young under 21s and other ones also on the bench, and like a larger crop of players. So this is just the starting 11. Of course, you won't have Spain, and Spain's team in 2010 World Cup was a mixture of this. We had the young people, we had the older Iniestas and co in the mix. So I think the blend is good. For me, I don't have a problem with that.
No, I agree with it. Uh, and my take on it, to be honest, is the fact that a rebuild does not necessarily mean that you need to bring young players in. That's not necessarily the meaning of a rebuild. You can bring experienced old players, a mix of young and
Sure.
experienced old players in. For me, the rebuild really starts with a mentality. It's like, are we all buying into the same philosophy of how we're going to play football? And if a young person comes tomorrow versus an older person comes tomorrow, are they going to buy into that? Are we playing like a unit, right? Do we have a playing style, a playing identity that we can all buy into? If you can establish that, it doesn't matter who you take in and bring out. If whoever is coming in is buying into it, then you have that core unit. Then I think you're good. So a rebuild doesn't necessarily have to be that we have young players. My thing though is the fact that the reason why I usually is good to start with young players is that a rebuild will take you 3 to 5 years to really solidify. But unfortunately, by the time you're hitting that, by the time you're really hitting your stride, the 27-year-olds are turning 32. In real life, they're turning 38. So it's like you now cannot fully see the full turn, like see the team making the full turn, because the players that you're building with, by the time you're actually at a point where you're able to rebuild with them, they're getting old and then they're retiring from the team. But for me, that's still not a bad situation, because it doesn't matter how old a player turns, you can still keep them around. Because again, it's like if they can now impart what they've learned over the past 3-4 years onto the younger players who are coming in, or the new players that are coming in, then you establish some continuity. Where it's just okay, we're making sure that every time somebody else comes in, they're buying into it. So for me, the age is not really an issue. It's more so, one, if we're saying Ghana national team average is 27 on, publicly, it means privately Ghana's national team is on average about 31 years old. Now that's where the problem is now, can they compete against Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea, who are actually averaging 25 years old? Because Sam, you know it, if there are kids 18 years old in our church that if you put them against you and I at 33 and 31, we're not going to be able to keep up with them. So I think that's the concern there. If the age was really 27, I wouldn't really be bothered. It goes back to what we're talking about, where the age is not really 27. So now therein lies the problem.
So I missed it. I think you said something, and before that, I'd like to address a comment by Eric. On watching from my YouTube. Thank you, Eric. He said it's about time the local teams start promoting the younger players into the league, so they could build the confidence and tenacity to play with international players. See, you gave a great example of a player like Andre Iniesta. Mind you, Iniesta has been playing, and most of the time we look at Iniesta's age playing in the 2010 World Cup. Mind you, Iniesta has been playing for Spain since 2000. He started playing with under 15. He started playing with under 17, under 21. He went back to the national team, was not really seen as okay, you're ready yet. Went back to playing 21 and then came back. We're looking at our national team and we're looking at these players who have never put on a national team before. They have never won that. So we're talking about rebuilding, and that's what Jeff is talking about, right? We are actually, and that's one of the reasons why I'm only looking at the younger generation, because we don't have a specific system where a player can come in and thrive. We don't have it. Ghana has not built that yet. So if we're going to talk about rebuilding, I think this is the time that we actually need to focus on a younger generation. And most of the time we talk about it, right? You can have a younger generation come in there and then you can groom them. Now let's take this World Cup. Assuming we qualify for the next World Cup, right? 4 years from now, Pate is going to be 32 years old. Actually, he's going to be 33 years old. Amate is going to be 32 years old. I mean, our Jordan Ayew is going to be 34 years old. Not Kudus. What is it? Jiku is going to be 31 years old. Our goalie is going to be 30 years old. I mean, we're looking at all these. We're looking at all these players, right? Inaki is going to be freaking 32 years old. So that's more than half the starting lineup. So again, how do you actually just incorporate these people who've never ever won a national team? And like Jeff is saying, right, it's always good to keep the old people around, and which is great, because there's something called locker room experience. Even playing, I remember when I was playing in college, there used to be a player, one of my friends, my teammates who never played, right, but he's been in the school for since his freshman year. But they always put him in there. Obviously, he was on a scholarship, so they always put him in there just so he can talk up the young guys as to what to do, what to expect in all these situations. US does the same thing. They did the same thing with London Donovan and Clint Dempsey. They put him in there for locker room experience. But this is the case where we're actually relying on all these old players. To me, if you are playing at a national team and this is the first time you're playing and you are 30 years old, 28, I'm sorry, man, that's too late. And there's no kind of rebuilding that we can actually do around these players without incorporating like maybe the younger generation. Like, again, it's going to be hard to figure out who is really 19, right?
That was going to be my follow-up question. Who are you? Like, how do you tell me the 19-year-olds are actually 19? Some of the 19-year-olds that were playing for under 19 for Ghana right now, they could be playing on this senior team, and they're probably older than some of these players that we're looking at. So, like, where do you start from? I think that's why there's going to be an overcorrection where it's like, I can almost guarantee that by the next World Cup, not this World Cup, Ghana's starting lineup is all going to be foreign-born kids. Why? Because that's who Otoado can actually verify that this person, if he says he's 21, he's 21. If he
Good.
says he's 25, he's 25. Beyond that, he doesn't know. Sorry, go ahead, Misty.
Oh, I'm definitely agreeing with you because you can't verify the local ages, and that is the truth. See, Otoado, and sometimes some people chastise him for bringing out these foreign-born boy players. They are the only ones he can trust with their ages. You understand? And so I can assure you, with this World Cup, we'll have a lot of them going to the World Cup just for experience sake and prepare them for the next World Cup. I'm telling you, because with the local boys, see, you have just the best goal scorer in our league last season just went to a team in Egypt, and he said he's 22 years old. And someone was like, but in 2013, you played in the league and was given stats about how he scored goals. That means he was 10 years when he played in the local league. This is never done anywhere. You can he scored, yeah, I know. You can't tell me when you even see him, you know he's so people were even saying that we should be with the national team because he's our top goal scorer in the local league and another thing. But to be honest, when you are 2013, you are playing in the same league, and you're telling me how old, 22 years now? How do you expect the coach to trust you? So definitely, I think if with the what GFL has in place now, if they are going to continue with it with the MI to check the ages and assure us that the junior national team or the players going through the junior national team system have the right ages. Maybe the next World Cup we might not have wholesome team. We might have about 3, 4 of them being part of the team now. Or if we don't get that, we'll be having all the foreign-born players in the national team.
I'll also say this, and this is more politics than sports, but it's one of the reasons why I'm happy to some semblance of a social security card coming to Ghana, which is a Ghana card, is if you give birth and then they assign a Ghana card number to that kid, it's set in stone. So now, hopefully, nobody can go back and on some paper change the age and other details. But like we should be thinking about these things before we think about what is the benefit of having a 19-year-old go play in an under 15 tournament. Like it not only is it morally wrong, it's also just dangerous. You have a grown man playing among children, and we've benefited from that imbalance for so long. So it's time for us to pay up.
I mean, Steve, I want to. I think you mentioned something about that. These age thing, and I think it has really gotten to the point where it's starting to take up, much of our discussion for the day, which is very important because you and I both know there's a player called not to put him out there, but we do have a player playing on our team who actually looks like you and myself, who recently changed his age to be 17, right, to go play. And you look at these situations, Jeff Jeff really brought up a solution because I was actually going to ask about the same thing, because he just took the words out of my mouth. How do we locally or internally, well, you being out there, you probably, just know best. How do we locally or internally try to, incorporate this age thing or try to have some kind of, because honestly, if you look at this, right, most of these players who are able to go outside play in the leagues in Ghana, right? They play in the local leagues, and they have to go through the whole team, the whole organization, and get the papers and everything. So how does the leaders or the team owners actually, get these proven ages to actually determine that what these guys are actually, as old as they are, and what do you think we can do as a person? Like, actually, obviously the Ghana card is one of it, but again, this is Ghana, right? If you have like $200, I mean, or something like that, you could definitely just get whatever you want. So again, in terms of football, Mister, how do you think we can actually just do that before Jeff goes?
So for me, that's the situation we are facing now. The truth is, with the Ghana card, people go back and swear an affidavit that okay, my mother made a mistake with my age and they forgot to. I want to change the age and this, and they just go back and change. That is why I said that now what GFA is doing, the solution, and I hope it works and it continues, is the MRI system. I hope it does. And now we have the FIFA Connect system. That's what I'm saying. So with even if you're a Colts player and maybe 10 years ago or today you put in the age, I was born in 19 maybe 2000. In 2 years time you can't change that age. You understand? So that's the only thing we can hope works. But if and even with that, people are beating the system by changing their names and identities. You understand? So it's quite a difficult situation. But in Ghana, everything is possible. You know it. People say, "Oh, my birth certificate got missing. My birth certificate got missing." So I'm going to prepare a new one, and you just need 300 cedis, which is how much in dollars? Maybe 40, $50. You get a new birth cert. Go and prepare a new passport. You have to
I'm
make
used to, not to cut you off. I got people texting me they want to see this player, and I just want to show this is a 24-year-old player. Jeff, I just want you guys to take a closer look at y'all know a winger playing for Ashanti Gold, and he's supposed to be 24. I mean, come on. You look at him, and I mean, look at his hairline. Not to throw shades, but come on, there is
I
no
mean,
way.
to be honest, this is the thing. Looking at him, you said 24. I could believe it.
Come on, man.
I mean, what about him am I supposed to look at? And that's why I go with the MRI system that Amisi's talking about. Based on just looking at this guy, he could be 24. He could be 31. Like, and maybe that's the thing too. Then that's what we've enjoyed as Ghanaians. Is like we have good skin. Like you see a grown Ghanaian person and they look young. They keep fit and they look young. So the thing is, maybe our 32-year-olds look too much like they're 24. So now the 24-year-olds have to look younger. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like we can't. I think that is part of the problem, right? And I'm being funny, on purpose. But that's part of the problem is that a lot of these things have been done based on an eye test. It's a smell test. Does he look 24? Does he move like a 24? To Amis's point earlier, does he weigh like what an average 24? Those are all not verifiable ways of determining somebody's age.
Yeah.
Because right now, you looking at this guy, me looking at this guy, if the two of us are to make a decision, it's based on our opinions. If I look at him like, to me, he looks like 24. If my opinion overrules you, or let's say if I'm your boss, this guy now goes into the system as a 24-year-old. And that's not a verifiable way of doing it. But I mean, I play with Cantor. Come on.
So another thing that I kind of want us to just talk about news reaching us House Sports is Afinia John signed a new contract. However, he is not in the plans of Otuado for the starting position. And I actually wanted to get everybody's take on that. I was actually disappointed when I heard that, read that as well. And it's quite sad that a player like Jordan Ayew, I know Amici is gonna get on me with this because I talk about his favorite player, but a player like Jordan Ayew is actually getting more caps or getting the starting position over Afinia John. And I just wanted to get you guys your takes on it before we move on to the next topic.
So for me, Afinijan is still developing. I always make this point that the senior national team, you should be ready when you are given the opportunity. He has been given. He started with the Japan tournament, the Karin Cup. He was in, I think, one of the qualifiers. We've given him the chance, but I don't think he's ready yet. He needs time. And you see, it's not some players just get into the national team and just deliver. But he needs time. And even Jose Mourinho has said that he's still developing.
Mhm.
He still needs to work on him. So let's see and that's one thing I trust about Otoado, that from now to November, if the season starts and he performs well and he scored for the September qualifiers and he delivers, I definitely know that he's starting ahead of Jordan Ayew. That one I'm very sure. And we said it earlier. Sometimes you think, okay, Jordan is not good, but he has the World Cup experience. He has been there. So if the starting lineup comes up and he starts maybe after first half 60 minutes, he's taken out for an inexperienced player to come in. That's cool. So for me, even in Roma, he's not even assured of a starting position. He doesn't even play in Roma. So I was even hoping that he goes on loan right after signing the new deal, or maybe yes, hope for play time. But if he's not getting it, there's no way he's going to be in the national team.
And Sam, I want to call you out on something that I think is highlighting much of what we're talking about. You, as an average Ghanaian, have not had the chance. You have been robbed of the opportunity of seeing a young player who's playing his age come into his being. Right? We're saying, oh, here's this new 21-year-old star, blah, 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 knowing he's like 25, 26. He's put on the international stage and he starts performing. So we're used to that. Why? Because when we say, oh, here's a 21-year-old who's now being given his first start, his first opportunity, we see them and they come in, they take us by storm. Why? Because he's 26 years old, 27 years old. He's been bred for a long time. So when we were first introduced to them as a 21-year-old, what we've come to expect out of them, now we're truly seeing what a 21-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old who's truly 18, 19 years old, who's still coming into their being looks like, and we're getting impatient, right? When we're playing the AFCON or like even the qualifiers, and I think he was a striker for Ghana. He was playing through the middle. People were so frustrated. I'm like, do you guys realize this child is 18 years old, 19 years old? He's a child. But the thing is, we're not used to seeing, if we say someone is 18 years old, we're not used to seeing their developmental play. We're used to seeing them after playing for years and years and years, and then their age being knocked back. And then we say they're 18, 19, and then we see them play. We've gotten used to that caliber of play. So now when we see him, everybody's impatient, and he may not get the patience that he needs. To Amisi's point, he's a child. He is still learning. He still has a long way to go. Marino fully acknowledges that and understands that. So he'll give him his playing time. He will send him to go play with the under 23 kids, with the youth and academy teams for some weeks. He'll bring him into the senior team. He's breeding him gradually to get to the point where he earns his place. But once he comes to the national team, oh yeah, we want him to lead the line. Oh, Afinajan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, this is how it's done. He needs the time to grow into it. Sam, you're on mute.
But so Jeff, I get what you're saying. So, and I think last week, Misty, for the first time, I'll probably just agree with him. That and he said, Marino should shut up, right? And I'll probably just say the same thing. These kind of technical or technique or strategies that we're referring to and everything. You're right. I have been robbed of that, and right now I'm seeing like a 19-year-old, and I'm yearning for him to be on the big stage, right? Not necessarily because of his age, but because I actually want to see what he can do, and not necessarily, right, but possibly just make it or fail, right? I want him to fail. I want the team to fail because honestly, if you look at every successful team out there, Pogba started when he was very, very young. He played in a European under 21. He was very young. He shone. They brought him to the National League. They started off with so many young players. Young players. The only older striker they had at the time was Olivier Giroud. They failed miserably. They came back the following year. 4 years later, they had been playing together and all that stuff. They came back better. England went through the same thing with the likes of Lampard when they moved on from Lampard to Gerrard, the Terrys, and all of them. England just went down just like that. Now they started incorporating these young guys who were actually young, right? And then whether the managers of the club said they were not good or they were not ready, they still incorporated it. They let them play, and they incorporated the England style of play in them, and now they grow into it. So honestly, when I look at that, that's what I'm actually looking for, right? As opposed to now that we've actually gotten a much younger guy, like forget what Marino is saying about he's not ready. To him, he's not ready because honestly, we all know the reason why he said it. And I miss he said that better last week for the first time. Like I said, I agree with you. He said that last week. Marino and all these coaches do not want them to come to Africa because they don't want them to get injured enough. Because they feel like everything that we have is actually just bad. They don't want them getting injured enough that when they come back to the club level, they have to sit on the sideline and everything. Because as in the beginning of the season, Afinyajan was Marino's go-to until he started his immature ways when he got dropped and everything. So,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but with what you're saying about Marino, what's wrong with that? Let's be critical of ourselves. Our facilities are not good. He comes and he's playing. Let's say he's playing against Ivory Coast or any other African country. At 18 years old, he's playing against 35-year-olds who are saying they're 29 years old, and all they're doing is breaking down his knees. He comes back injured. The investment it made in him, the progress it made in him, he sets them back 6 months. Like, of course, whether it's Marino, who's a white man who's saying it, or me as a black man saying it, the truth is the truth. Like, if I am a player, if I am a manager of an international team, of an international club, and you tell me send my players to AFCON to go play on those pitches in Cape Coast and Kumasi, I'm not. If given the opportunity, I would say no. So sometimes we have to criticize ourselves. Look at this. We have to criticize ourselves. We have to accept the criticism.
And this is the thing, and Jeff, I'm not saying you're wrong, right? And I'm just saying, right now we have the infrastructure, and obviously, Jeff, you missed this segment. This is a new turf by the current president promised to the people, one district, one astroturf, and the citizens of the city actually cut part of it to go decorate his home, and apparently he did get arrested and got 7 years in prison, but. So we actually, and I only put this up just for humor and everything, but I'm just saying right now we're starting to have the infrastructure and everything. And it's right. Like you go to Accra and there's several astroturfs out there, right? Like we're starting to have these infrastructures. So why don't are we waiting to have the whole thing just built to the point where we end up looking like maybe Stamford Bridge or Bernabeu or anything?
No, we're not. But the thing is, it's like we can't also expect to move as if even though we don't have a Stamford Bridge or Bernabeu, that there isn't some wear and tear on players when they do play on these things. Yes, it's multiple things that are happening at the same time across different dimensions. Yes, we're trying to build our league. We're trying to build our facilities. We're trying to build the turfs. We're trying to build everything. But during that time, until we get there, we have to acknowledge and understand and just acknowledge the fact that when people do play on the turfs that are not quite yet up to par, there is a negative impact to them individually. Forget them going back to play for their local clubs. For their foreign clubs. If our players were to play on these pitches for a long extended period of time, when it's time for them to go play against Portugal, Uruguay, or South Korea in the World Cup, that's still going to set us back. And it's not at that point, it's not going to be a fault of the player.
But Jeff, who is at risk of getting injured more? The 30-year-old Jordan Ayew, the 28-year-old Inaki, or the 19 or 21-year-old
They're all at risk of injury.
Okay, then. So why are we leaving some people aside and then taking certain players with the notion that they might get injured for their club? I know you've been trying to talk. You go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so I might divert a little bit, but you see, in Europe, by 10 years, between 10 and 15 years, you should know the basics of the sports, the science behind the sports, the technique behind the sports. But in our case, someone like Afenyejan is now learning that thing at 19 years. So you don't expect the person to go out onto the field and shine. You understand? So we have infrastructure problems here in Ghana. We don't even have the facilities to train the people. And how do you expect them to perform? How do you expect someone like Mourinho to even trust you that, okay, when these guys come, they're going to get better training facilities here? You understand? We don't have the basics here. By between 10 and 15, 16 years, you should know how to kick the ball, how to head, how to even play football, the science behind football. We don't have them. Afenyejan is now learning. That is why you won't see him on the Pogba level when Pogba was 19. Pogba learned what Afenyan is learning now when he was 10 years, when he was 11 years. You understand? So in our situation, when the real 19-year-old is on the field, he doesn't know football. He goes to Europe and he can't even train the senior team because he doesn't even know the runs or even how to even warm up for a game. You understand? So we have issues with infrastructure, and that is bad.
And that is why also the foreign teams believe it when we present a 19-year-old to them and tell them he's 14. Because they see him play and then go, okay, his IQ, his football IQ is that of a 14-year-old. Because he's not gotten the training he's supposed to get. So it makes it more believable. Now, even if you have any doubts about how they look, the moment they step on the pitch, the moment you start comparing them to other 19-year-olds, who they're supposed to be, you realize that, no, this guy is underdeveloped. So maybe they're right that he's 14 years old. All of these problems, like, they're not isolated. They all find a way to be, they're all interconnected and influence everything. And that's why, going back to everything we've been talking about for the past few weeks, is it starts with the management. People think, oh, marketing is separate from the pitch. Oh, whatever is happening at the GFA level, regardless of what happens at the GFA level, when we're on the field and we're playing, all of those things are interconnected. So yes, it's like I'm not happy that Mourinho, a white, European man, is really talking down on our league or saying whatever he wants to say, but there is material truth to what he's saying. And it's like the quicker we acknowledge it, the quicker we need to start focusing away from what he said and if it was racist or not to what solutions do we need to start putting in place to make sure that 10 years from now, when he's saying it, we can brush it off because it's no longer true. That's what I want us to focus on.
So, Jeff, I mean, I guess, to both of you guys and our listeners, I mean, I would probably say we're probably going to be in this situation for a long haul, right? Because, I mean, we're looking at it, and if that's really how we're looking at it, you and I both know that Afenyan most likely probably is not 19. And if we're not going to, kind of incorporate him at a younger age into this group, and we're going to wait thinking or saying that he's going to mature or he has to mature, okay, this World Cup, maybe now, but the next World Cup, that means we're constantly going to have these 26, 27, 28-year-olds representing us. You know what I mean? That's
is the price we're paying.
But Jeff, for how long though? That's the thing. For how long?
Here's the thing. For how long did we cheat? That's the thing.
For how long are we going to keep paying that same price for something that we are all ready to make a change? And now folks are actually.
Let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
If during Sika Kono's time when they were playing, right, you had told them that this is the eventual result, and the thing is, nobody had to go tell them because a discerning mind should have been able to think that this is where we'll be 20, 15 years down the road. Right. But if you had told them that, right, and you painted the clearest of pictures to them of what this situation is going to be like, and you had told them back then, how we're going to solve this is you need to sacrifice and let the younger players get the opportunity to be bred and developed so that they can now be able to set in place this legacy so that in 15, 20 years from now, we can avoid this problem. What do you think they would have said? That's not their problem. They don't care. But today, there will still be the people who will sit on TV and will write, opinion articles and criticize this current situation, right? But given the opportunity to turn it around back then, they would have thought about what they were going to earn back then. So for me, I'm like, it's like, for how long are we going to suffer the consequences of the mistakes that we did or the mistakes our parents did? Well, we should have thought about that. But then also, we can't change what happened then, right? But we have an opportunity today. Today, we have the opportunity to try to change it going forward. But still today, what's his name? Dani Amate at 27 years old might get a better opportunity to play on the national team than other 27-year-olds who are looking for that opportunity. So we're still doing it today, right? It's not like we've stopped. And now we're lamenting about why are we still suffering the consequences. We're still doing it. We're still doing it today. We're still employing we're taxing players to play today, right? All of the things that we're talking about, we're still doing it. So until we stop doing it, we can't, begin thinking about why are we suffering the consequences of it. We're still doing it today. Let's stop doing it first, and then let's start putting the solutions in place. And if those solutions are not working, then we can sit there and say, okay, man, when is this going to end? But until then, we can't expect it to end. This will continue until we come to our senses, until certain individuals are willing to make the necessary sacrifices. But the thing is, everybody's thinking about themselves. From the GFA president to everybody who works underneath them, to even players and the agents, everybody's thinking about themselves. And who's to say? Given the opportunity, I might think about myself too. So let me not sit here and be all self-righteous. But that's the problem. Let's acknowledge it. That is the problem. No one is willing to take the pay cut. No one is willing to sacrifice the little bread they can get today so that tomorrow we can see a better Ghana. No one is willing to do that. And until that happens, we'll continue experiencing this. And this has been experienced since Abedi Pele's time. And we're still experiencing it today.
Yeah.
So that's just my take on it. It's not stopping.
I missed the go ahead and get your thought in before we actually just close off.
Okay, so yes, I also add to it. We need to have a plan. We should agree. We should say that okay, yes, in the next 10 years, we are not going to survive or qualify for any local junior tournament, for junior national team tournament. We have a plan. Maybe in the next 10 years, we want to raise about maybe 50 crop of players for a national team. We need a plan. See, Senegal did it. If Sadio Mane's academy, the country came together and said, yes, generation foot, we should set up a national academy. France has a Clairefontaine, they have it. Mali has it. Generation foot, they have a lot of these academies. So we need like a national academy where we have about 50 coaches, go around, go everywhere in Ghana, look for the best crop of players. And this is very easy. See, lucky for us, we have the natural talent. We don't need to gather about 10 to 15-year-old guys, bring them into a national academy, come them, school them, teach them. And we need an identity as Ghana. As we said, we want to play like the Germans, we want to play like the Brazilians, we want to play like the traditional Ghana style of play called agro, where we do string a lot of passes together. Train coaches so that in our local league, when you watch the league, you see how we play. When you go to academies, we have a certain identity. As of now, we don't have an identity. Our coaches, you go to our local league, they play differently. National team a foreign coach can bring a different strategy. The junior national team, something different. So we don't even have a plan as a country. So if we decide, okay, in 10 years, we are raising about 10 to 15-year-old kids. We have an academy, camp them, feed them, school them. In 10 years, most of them will be 20, 25. And if out of the 50 players, we have about 20 who are like big and gone out. When they come back, they have an identity. They all grew into the system, went through the system and played. So it will be easy. They know themselves. It will be easy for the national team. But it looks like we don't have a plan. We know that, okay, we just grab about 3-4 boys, bring them together, go and look for foreign-born Ghanaians, bring them together and play. We will never survive with that. You understand?
And
so we need to be honest with ourselves. No age cheating. Bring 8 boys, school them, take them to school, let them write exams, let them go through, so they'll be intelligent. You see, football is now a science. Football is not like natural kick and pass. Football has evolved. We need to, if we don't follow that line, we are never going to make it. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I love that idea of what you're talking about, right? Like a Clairefontaine or like a national academy, right? Because one thing that I read it was like an athletic article. This was like last year or 2 years ago. Is if you look at the French league today, the Ligue 1, most of the coaches in there used to be assistant coaches at Clairefontaine, and so they're not just developing players; they're also developing coaches for the local leagues. Coaches who are earning their badges, who are learning the style of play, so that now when you go into your local clubs and you're coaching and developing players, you're going to develop players who are going to play in the style of the national team, so that the eligibility for the national team is even increased. There's so many benefits to just doing something like that. we have the land, we have the resource. We can do that overnight. Overnight. If there is an intention there to make something like that happen, you can do it overnight. The problem is not the money. The problem is not the resources. If you take one funeral in Ghana and you take all the contributions that people will give at that funeral this coming weekend, that funeral alone could potentially build at least 2 turf pitches to support something like that on a national level. We can do it. We have the resources. We have the know-how. We have everything we need. The only thing missing is the will, is the intention. Because the moment we do it, somebody somewhere is going to have to lose a little bit of something that they get in their pocket today because we don't have something like that. So that's the problem. And to me, there's so many benefits, and I love that idea. And quite frankly, as you're talking about it, I'm like, okay, ideally, if you look at France's model, Belgium's model, Germany's model, right, of these national academies and whatnot, it's always been through like the FAs, and it's been like a national kind of we could do this commercially. If somebody's worried about how do you make money off of this, I would love to talk to them. There's so many ways you can make money off of this alone. So it doesn't have to be something that we wait for the government to come and also solve that problem. Somebody can put, with the right investment, be able to build this academy and benefit immensely in that investment into an academy like that. But that's what we need if we're going to start putting something in place for the long term. Samuel, mute.
So I think, before I wrap up, I actually, this is definitely something that I was just putting on the agenda for us to table it up for discussion. Obviously, in my thought or in my opinion, I think, England does it where almost every single team in the top tier has an academy. Every single team, professional team in the Premier League, the Championship League, I think it goes all the way down to Division 3. Everyone mandatory. The owners need to have an academy where they play the academy, the youth. They call them the youth team. So I think it's definitely something too that the GFA can also implement on these leaders. Again, the leaders have to be held accountable. I mean, not the leaders. The owners have to be held accountable for making sure that the game actually does go on successfully as we need to. But I think we do have a lot to discuss come next week. But we're cutting into the next program. But before we log out, I do want to thank each and every one of us, especially Jeff, Misty all the way from Ghana, and also our listeners, contributors, and everyone watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and also listening in on our audio platform. We do want to thank you guys for joining us. And we appreciate your time and effort that you actually take into being a part of this successful show. We would like to log off and say good night until we see you guys again. Good night, and thank Jeff, Misty. See you guys.
Era1 Radio. Era1 Radio.
Señor, 지와 고우미무 우려디노 거리에리 고수자 어부의 무교 오페마 아위레우나 주순누리 켄코 예리 베뇨냥 디치누 오베산 아버지 죄장보는 비가 아포ፉ 핀핀누디네치 구랑구림디 비라는 보여디노 과리엔체 부베티 세워지과누 Mu'a